Millions of people watched this acclaimed Hollywood crime thriller in the late 90s without noticing a single deeply disturbing and exact detail hidden right before their eyes. What seemed to be just a fictional work of entertainment, directed by a master of cinema and starring one of the most popular actors of that decade, revealed itself 27 years later to be a sinister and incredibly precise blueprint of recent real-world events that have shaken political structures and the backrooms of global power. On the surface of the screen, we follow a plot of corruption, conspiracy, and the assassination of a high-ranking government official in the middle of a massive, crowded sports arena. But if we look beyond the cinematic film, we are confronted with a network of coincidences so millimetrically exact in names, dates, locations, and esoteric symbols that they defy logic and force us to question whether the reality we live today was not already entirely drawn in the past in the form of what experts call predictive programming. Who really wrote this story? And why does cinema seem to have the power to anticipate in such a disturbing way real tragedies that the most influential authorities attempt to hush up or rewrite in front of the public? The answer to these questions opens the doors to one of the largest and most complex investigative labyrinths of our era, revealing a hidden signature that few are capable of seeing in its entirety. Before we unveil the disturbing secrets that link this Hollywood classic to the silent backstage of world events that many prefer not to discuss, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, we investigate the deep mysteries and hidden codes that most people miss without realizing. To begin this investigative journey, we must examine the geometric center of the fictional conspiracy that unfolds in the film Snake Eyes, directed by Brian De Palma and released in the year 1998. The plot of the movie revolves entirely around the planned and brutal assassination of a high-ranking government authority, the United States Secretary of Defense. On the screen, the name of this prominent character is Charles Kirkland, frequently referred to as Charlie Kirkland by the characters who surround him in the backrooms of the Atlantic City Casino. In our reality, one of the most impactful and conspiracy-shrouded recent deaths involved a man whose civil name is Charles Kirk, known globally by his public name of Charlie Kirk. The phonetic and orthographic similarity between the names of the assassinated fictional secretary, Charles Kirkland, and the recent real victim, Charles Kirk, is the first clue in a long trail that seems to directly connect the fiction of 27 years ago to the events of our days. While the general public sees in this resemblance only a casual coincidence of the script, predictive programming analysts understand that the insertion of such closely aligned names functions as an underlying signature, preparing the collective unconscious for the future acceptance of traumatic events on the geopolitical stage. The millimetric alignment between the cinematic work and factual reality becomes even more disturbing when we analyze the chronological records of both events. In Brian De Palma's film, all the suspense, the simulated boxing match, and the subsequent violent elimination of Secretary of Defense Charles Kirkland occur under the explicit announcement of a specific date on the casino's internal advertisements and on the sports arena's television broadcast screens, September 10th. In the reality we watched in shock recently, the unexpected and controversial death of Charlie Kirk occurred precisely on the same date, September 10th. The exact repetition of this calendar day cannot be easily dismissed by simple mathematical probability statistics. September 10th, which precedes one of the most traumatic and geopolitically shifting historical dates on American soil, seems to carry in itself a symbolism of transition, a chronological threshold in which old power structures are dismantled to make way for new control arrangements, suggesting that both the Hollywood production and the executors of the real event operated under the same ritualistic and esoteric planning timer of the masses. As we delve into the details of how the crime is structured in both spheres, the precision of the connections reaches a staggering level when we investigate the identity of those pointed out as executors. In the 1998 film, the advertising decorating the casino stadium highlights a heavyweight boxing match featuring the main fighter, a man of intimidating strength whose battle name stamped on the promotional banners is Tyler the Executioner. He is the central figure of the spectacle that serves as the great smokescreen for the physical elimination of Secretary Charles Kirkland. When we confront this fictional detail with the report of the official investigations on the real case, we discover that the individual formally accused and detained under the charge of delivering the fatal blow against the real Charlie Kirk is named precisely Tyler Robinson. The coincidence between the fictional name of the fighter Tyler, explicitly associated with the moniker of Executioner, and the name of the real accused of the crime, Tyler Robinson, goes far beyond a simple casual homonymy. It reveals a narrative engineering that mirrors the roles directly, establishing that the figure named Tyler is the active agent of violence in both scenarios, acting as the shock element projected to destabilize the environment and consummate the fatal act. Forensic analysis and the anatomy of the act of physical elimination reveal another disturbing and impossible to ignore symmetry. In the narrative directed by Brian De Palma, Secretary of Defense Charles Kirkland is fatally struck by a firearm projectile while in the VIP area of the sports arena. Careful examination of the camera shots and the subsequent lines of the investigators in the film make it clear that the projectile penetrated the victim's body exactly on the left side of his neck. In the real case involving the physical elimination of Charlie Kirk, medical reports and initial eyewitness testimonies confirmed that the fatal injury causing his death occurred identically, striking his neck exactly on the left side. This surgical precision in the anatomical location of the wound, the left side of the neck in both cases, demonstrates that we are not dealing with random variables. In classical occultism and the ritualized combat arts of the elite, the left side of the body is closely associated with the left-hand path, the pathway of shadows, deceit, and destruction, suggesting that the choice of this impact point carries both a practical purpose of high biological efficacy and an esoteric meaning of consecration of force. The complexity of conspiratorial operations always requires the presence of an execution trigger, a coordinated activation signal that goes unnoticed by the general public, but is perfectly understood by the agents involved. In the film Snake Eyes, the conspiratorial plan drawn by the corrupt military commander waits patiently in the VIP crowd. The signal for the start of the gunfire and the beginning of the blackout in the casino is given by an individual positioned in the middle of the hysterical crowd who begins to utter coordinated shouts and specific arm movements at the exact instant of the planned knockout. In real life, the mystery surrounding the death of Charlie Kirk is fueled by rigorous analyses of the event's recordings, where attentive observers pointed to the occurrence of extremely suspicious nonverbal signals executed by people very close to him moments before his elimination. Analysts point to the recording where an individual repeatedly touches his own cap, which in classical military tactical code represents the visual identification of a male target, followed immediately by a subtle touch on his left ear, like adjusting a listening device. Moments later, another security element stretches out his arm and performs a rhythmic touch. At the exact instant the victim uttered his last words about gang violence on the streets, serving as the final trigger for the fatal attack to be unleashed under the mantle of apparent crowd confusion. However, it is in the immediate reaction of the authorities after the crime that fiction and reality separate in an ironic way, exposing the guts of a possible cover-up in real life. In the 1998 film, the protagonist, played by Nicolas Cage, police officer Rick Santoro, reacts energetically and immediately to the assassination of Charles Kirkland. He orders the absolute lockdown of all exits of the hotel casino, preventing any of the 14,000 people present in the sports arena from leaving the place without being minutely identified and interrogated. preserving the integrity of the crime scene for the search for physical evidence in a rigorous manner. In our reality, the treatment given to the scene of Charlie Kirk's death followed an opposite and shockingly rushed path. Instead of isolating the perimeter, conducting detailed searches, and interrogating each of the thousands of witnesses present at the event, local authorities and the administrators of the space allowed the immediate dispersal of the crowd. What is most startling is that, in the early hours of the next day, work crews were spotted starting renovation and deep cleaning work in the exact spot where the crime had occurred, washing the ground and altering the physical structure of the environment irreversibly. This unusual haste in erasing physical marks and modifying the crime scene prevents any subsequent independent investigation, eliminating crucial evidence under the guise of routine maintenance, resembling the classical methods of destroying evidence by intelligence agencies of the shadow government. The investigation gains even more intricate contours when we examine the physical infrastructure where these plots cross. Although the film refers to the scene of the crime as the Gilbert Powell Aerodrome Hotel and Casino, the actual film production of Snake Eyes was entirely shot and set in 1998 on the premises of the Trump Taj Mahal Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This massive and luxurious property belonged at the time directly to the businessman and current president of the United States, Donald Trump. The choice of this specific setting establishes a definitive spatial link between Brian De Palma's film and the highest circles of political power that dominate our era. President Donald Trump's Taj Mahal served as the physical theater where the staging of a multi-billion-dollar national security conspiracy was eternalized in the lenses of cinema, demonstrating that the entertainment spaces of the real estate and political elite of New York and New Jersey have always functioned as privileged stages for the transmission of coded messages to the public, connecting Trump's business dynasty to the very history of Hollywood's UFO and military leaks. The internal connection of the fictional plot with the reality of defense contracts reveals the true economic engine that drives the secretary's murder. In the 1998 film, the owner of the hotel casino, the billionaire Gilbert Powell, is revealed to be one of the most active members and funders of the secret conspiracy to eliminate Secretary of Defense Charles Kirkland. The motive behind this backstage crime was strictly financial and geopolitical. Secretary Kirkland was firmly determined to cancel and unilaterally suspend a multi-billion-dollar defense contract for the development of a revolutionary new experimental naval projectile, in which Powell had invested his entire personal fortune and the future of his companies. To protect his immense profits and ensure the survival of his political influence in the weapons industry, Powell allied himself with the corrupt Admiral Kevin Dunn to eliminate the resistant secretary and replace him with a malleable authority who would approve the weapons project immediately. In the contemporary scenario, analysts and intelligence observers point out that Charlie Kirk's public actions had been severely interfering in high-cost projects and agendas maintained by industrial complexes and corporations that dictate the global geopolitical path, suggesting that his physical elimination met urgent protection needs of the economic interests of elites operating in the shadow of state agencies and security corporations. In Brian De Palma's cinematic fiction, after the consummation of the act of violence in the VIP arena, it is the hotel and casino owner himself, Gilbert Powell, who coldly takes the press microphones to officially announce to the nation the death of Secretary of Defense Charles Kirkland, using his authority as host to endorse an entirely false narrative and blame a foreign scapegoat. In real life, the political unfolding of this event acquired an ironic and disturbing symmetry. It was the former owner of the hotel casino where the film was shot, current President Donald Trump, who first came forward to dramatically announce Charlie Kirk's death to the global population. More than a mere official announcement, Donald Trump's public statement transformed the victim's funeral and memorial into a massive political spectacle for the right-wing movement. In his public statement, Trump used a term that caused astonishment among linguists and discourse analysts, classifying the tragic event as a revival, a driving force capable of unifying and strengthening again the electoral base of his campaign under the sign of shared trauma. As a security solution, President Donald Trump publicly proposed the tightening of urban surveillance regimes through the massive use of social control artificial intelligence and mass facial monitoring systems, using the tragedy of his own ally to pave the way for restriction and social control laws that directly affect the individual freedom of the civilian population. The symbolism surrounding this event transcends traditional political analysis and penetrates the depths of occult, esotericism, and biblical eschatology. The film's very title, Snake Eyes, which in the language of casino games refers to a roll of dice of the lowest value and extreme bad luck, acquires a disturbing dimension when we analyze the architecture of the venue chosen for Charlie Kirk's memorial, held exactly 11 days after his death. The stadium that housed the thousands of people for the funeral service was purposefully built in the architectural format of a serpent coiled around itself. Furthermore, the film begins under a devastating storm explicitly called by the journalist Storm Jezebel. In factual reality, exactly 2 days before Charlie Kirk's death, on September 8th, a left-wing news portal associated with pop culture called precisely Jezebel published a bizarre article claiming that they had hired a group of ritual witches to cast curses of destruction against Charlie Kirk's life. The article was hastily deleted from the site's servers a few hours after his death was confirmed on September 10th. In biblical and theological tradition, Queen Jezebel is the archetypal figure of mental manipulation, spiritual deceit, and psychological control of the masses, who secretly conspires to forge false accusations against Naboth to eliminate him and seize his rightful property, suggesting that the storm opening the 1998 film and modern ritual actions operate under the same archetype of spiritual corruption. The symbolic engineering of Hollywood also manifests in the precise numerology that governs the development of the scenes in Snake Eyes. At the beginning of the film, the protagonist Rick Santoro, played by Nicolas Cage, crosses paths with a ring girl who conspicuously holds a sign with the number 7. He immediately points to the sign and repeatedly declares that 7 is his lucky number, a detail that recurs throughout the investigation when the same young woman calls his phone during moments of greatest dramatic tension. For those knowledgeable in classical Kabbalah and esoteric tarot, the number 7 represents the threshold of testing for the human soul. In the tarot, the major arcana 7 is the Chariot, representing the triumph of the spirit over the opposing forces of matter, but demanding rigorous discipline and self-control to keep the reins balanced. In the minor arcana, the 7 of Swords indicates cunning, dissimulation, and secret strategies to circumvent challenges. The 7 of Cups expressly warns against the illusions of the mind and false visual promises, connecting directly to the official subtitle printed on the film's poster, "Believe everything except your eyes." In the Tree of Life of the Kabbalah, 7 is the Sephira Netzach, the sphere of victory obtained through absolute persistence and the mastery of spiritual force over material obstacles, warning simultaneously of the deadly danger of human vanity. In the film, the protagonist is severely tested in his moral integrity when he receives a $1 million bribe offer from his old friend Dunn to sign the falsified reports and agree to silence the truth about Charles Kirkland's death, forcing his soul to choose definitively between the illusion of complicit wealth and the painful path of revealing historical truth. The closure of this investigative analysis leads us to the revelation of the spiritual and geopolitical purpose that unites the fictional work of 27 years ago to the political and esoteric rituals of our reality. The physical elimination of prominent figures like Charles Kirkland in fiction and Charlie Kirk in reality, does not represent isolated incidents of common crime or corporate revenge. According to great theologians and national security conspiracy researchers, these events meticulously synchronized under the alignment of terrestrial geomagnetic force lines, the so-called ley lines, in the middle of blood moon days and astronomical eclipses, function as true rituals of public consecration of a new order of spiritual perception. The ultimate goal of these silent operations of neurolinguistic engineering is to psychologically prepare humanity for what the scriptures and independent analysts call the great deception of the end times. This deception consists of the systematic deconstruction of traditional religions and the gradual implantation of a unified cosmic religion, based on the simulated premise that the deities of the past were only biophysical visitors of other worlds with high technology, and that historical biblical miracles were nothing more than advanced genetic UFO experiments. By using fiction to familiarize the unconscious of the masses with these premises, and proposing social control artificial intelligence of absolute surveillance as the only barriers against social chaos, the power elites seek to silently and definitively reformat the collective consciousness of humanity, imprisoning the human spirit under the permanent and hypnotic gaze of the great serpent of global deception. If you seek to understand the deep and hidden truths behind Hollywood cinema and the national security narratives that shape the spiritual destiny of our world, subscribe to the channel, leave your like, and share your opinion in the comments below. Our next case is already under rigorous investigation.